Hey, my friends, it's Matt. This is the 10-Minute Bible Hour podcast. And the other day I was poking around on Twitter, and I wasn't poking around. I very intentionally did this on Twitter. I asked the following question just randomly into the Twitter void. And that question is as follows. What do you want? That was it. No explanation or anything further. I just put the question out there to see what people would do with it because I think it's a very hard question. And not surprisingly, of the many responses I got back, a bunch of them were looking for qualification. Well, what do you mean? Like, what do I want right now? What do I want forever? What do I wish I could have, but I know I'll never actually have? And I didn't do much to help anybody with that because I thought the fact that the qualification question was their follow-up was indicative of where they were at. That was a good data point. Other people came back with silly stuff like pizza and yeah, okay, all right, that's cute. A lot of people went that route. Some people said what they thought I would want to hear. Now, some people on the internet think I'm an idiot and don't like me at all. Other people, I'm sure, like anybody else, it's more fun to get approval than not approval. And so some people clearly guessed from what they know about me, what they would think that I would want to hear them say, and then they tried to say that. And that's fine. To me, what that tells me is what they want is acceptance. Other people said very simple things external to themselves. Peace for others. I want people to get along better. And yeah, those are great answers. And then a few other people gave very simple answers that were internal to themselves. People said things like companionship or more time or wisdom, or for things to feel normal. Somebody else said, I just want to go home. Somebody else said they want fair treatment and respect. Somebody said, I want to feel joy again. That one stood out to me, I guess. They were all good answers, and I appreciated all of it. I asked the question because I genuinely wanted to know, but also because it's kind of an interesting question about the state of the world. And everybody's quick with opinions and has all kinds of things that they want to say, but what's the end game? Like, what's the thing that everybody would really like to achieve with their advocacy for this policy or this social change or this preference or whatever? And yeah, I think some of these answers got to the heart of it. I also think it's just a very difficult individual question to be asked that because it's so open-ended. There's so much freedom in it. And if you allow yourself to be honest, maybe it's a question that gets you down to the heart of the matter, gets you down to what you really, truly yearn for, your singular thing that motivates you. And in the passage we're looking at in Matthew chapter 20, that question is on display. And it forces a couple of people in a difficult situation to, in front of everyone, own what it is that they truly, deeply want. And the passage goes like this, Matthew 20:29. As Jesus and his disciples were leaving Jericho, a large crowd followed him. Two blind men were sitting by the roadside, and when they heard that Jesus was going by, they shouted, Lord, Son of David, have mercy on us. The crowd rebuked them and told them to be quiet, but they shouted all the louder, Lord, Son of David, have mercy on us. Jesus stopped and called them. What do you want me to do for you? He asked. Lord, they answered, we want our sight. Jesus had compassion on them and touched their eyes. Immediately they received their sight and followed him. And you can see where we're going today. I want to fixate on that tiny little exchange. They're blind, and so that completely hamstrings them in terms of what they can do in society. Probably that's what they want. So why did Jesus ask? Is he asking because he just wants them to say it out loud? It could be. We had a kid come over the other day, and this kid's style has always been to drop really obnoxiously obvious hints about what he wants you to do for him, but then never say it out loud. And so my deal with him is like, no, dude, I just want you to own it. I want you to own what you want. I want you to just ask for the thing that you want. And so I always push this kid, and I'm like, what are you trying to say? I'm not sure I'm understanding. What is it that you want? What are you pushing for? Oh, it makes him so uncomfortable. It just kills him to own it. And finally it comes out. What he wanted was a glass of milk. You can have a glass of milk, bro. Like, we could have saved a lot of time here. I would have gladly given that to you right from the beginning. And so maybe it's that kind of exercise here where Jesus is like, all right, guys, go through the front door. You got my attention. I'm listening right now. What is it that you want me to do? No being manipulative here or going through the side door or playing some kind of little victim-y game where you make me guess what it's supposed to be so you can further some narrative about how bad your luck is and how nobody cares. Right through the front door. What is it? It could be that. It could also be that it's some sort of Willow and the High Nelwyn type of test of faith where it's like, well, which finger has the power to change the world? And you're supposed to cleverly answer the philosophical riddle and choose your own finger. And maybe it was a thing where Jesus was trying to get him to be like, no, the real question is, what can we do for you, Lord? I don't know. Maybe it was some sort of esoteric exercise like that, but nothing contextually indicates that. And Jesus did just get done saying that he wasn't here to be served, but to serve and give his life as a ransom for many. So it'd be weird if in the very next passage, Jesus was using rhetorical angles and a pseudo-Socratic method to try to get these blind strangers on the road to flip it around and be like, what can we do for you? No, I think Jesus went into the conversation prepared to serve them, to immediately demonstrate the truth of this thing he just got done saying about how he came to serve, not to be served. So I don't think it was that. Another reason he might have asked was to teach the crowds something. Remember, the crowds were embarrassed or annoyed by these guys. They're like, well, we got a thing going on here. We're getting close to Jerusalem. We're headed towards something big. Maybe some people viewed this as the moment where their best aspiration to a Messiah who could get it done was going to cross into Jerusalem and the reckoning was going to happen. And like, I don't want to bother with needy people who are always bad. Like, these guys have been sitting here forever nagging about things. Like, we're not wasting important time right now on this nonsense again. These two always do this whenever anybody prominent comes through town. Oh, I roll. So maybe Jesus knew that was a social dynamic, and he was like, no, I'm going to teach you all something about the first being last and the last being first and the blind seeing. I think there may be some truth to that. I sense that this miracle was not just about teaching these two guys a lesson or modeling the authority of Jesus over nature to them, but that there was some kind of larger message here. I mean, if indeed where Jesus is headed next is toward the reckoning, which most people would have anticipated ending with his victory and his defeat of the Romans or the Jewish leadership or whatever, if that's where everybody thinks we're headed, and then Jesus stops the whole procession for the two least impressive people in all of Jericho, it kind of sends a message. And I think the message is, no, this matters. Like, the values of the kingdom aren't just conquest. The values of the kingdom are grace and mercy and justice and all of these other things that we've been talking about since the very beginning. Well, whatever you make of the motivation behind Jesus' question, we get a clear answer from the blind guys as to what they're thinking, and they go right through the front door. Oh, seriously? Well, we want to see again. Make it so we're not blind, please. And I guess that was the right answer? I mean, it seems like that was the truth, right? I mean, what's the right answer to the question, what do you want? It's the truth. It's not what I want to hear. It's not what somebody else wants to hear. It's not what signals to other people how enlightened and virtuous you are. It's the truth. It's a question that is about you. It's a question that's designed to help you search your motives and your priorities. And in this case, these guys viewed the thing that was the hurdle between them and being where they wanted to be as being their sight or their lack thereof. And so they don't even hesitate. They're immediately ready with the answer. And sometimes people will cover this passage and they put an almost annoyed voice on these dudes. And if I read it that way, I sure didn't mean to. But I don't see it that way. I don't think they're like, what? Obviously, we want to see. What are you doing? No, they're just direct. Lord, we want our sight. What a bold, brave, faithful, believing thing to ask. There was something about Jesus' reputation and what they'd heard from others. I mean, heck, maybe they heard from the two blind guys who were healed back in chapter 9, who rolled in through Jericho on their travels. And like, even though they weren't supposed to tell anybody, the text says they did. And maybe they told these guys, like, hey, I'm telling you, if you ever run into Jesus of Nazareth, you're going to want to say the following things, like, call him the Son of David, and be super, super, super persistent. And the reason we know that works is because it worked for us. And look, we can totally see. Ask me how many fingers you're holding up. I'll get it right every single time. So maybe they'd been coached toward realizing who Jesus was. Maybe they'd connected the dots. Maybe they were Bible people and they had nothing better to do but sit at the synagogue and listen to the teachings, and they did the math on it. We're like, you know what? There is someone coming, and Jesus ticks all the boxes. It's got to be him. He is the dun-dun to the bump-ba-da-dun-dun of the scriptures we have. And when Jesus was there was like, there's no way we're going to miss this thing. And maybe they even understood that blindness had become a metaphor for spiritual blindness, and the miracle of giving sight was somehow exemplary of the new values of the kingdom and the redemptive work of Christ. That maybe they got all of that. Maybe they got none of that. Whatever the case, I think they told the truth. Apparently, they believed two things: that is truly indeed what they truly deeply wanted, and that Jesus could do something about it. Hey, internet friend, you, yes, you right there. What do you want? And I'm not going to make any claims like, oh, all you got to do is say it, and then Jesus automatically does that. So just say it out loud where you are. I don't think that's really how it works. But also, I think the same God who's behind the Bible here and putting all of this effort into making himself known is still around and is still invested in making himself known. And I think this same God who is going to all of this work to do redemptive things is still doing redemptive things. I think asking ourselves that question and trying to very honestly answer it is very revealing about where we're at and who we are. And somehow including God in that process takes that to a whole other place. Thanks for thinking about complicated things with me. I'm Matt. This is the 10-Minute Bible Hour podcast. Let's do this again soon.